Growing up, I always feared monsters. Even in college, which most would consider to be the time when you can be called an adult, my greatest fears were the monsters under my bed, in the closet, or at the window. I would always tell myself how silly this was, seeing as I was an adult at this point, and I was still afraid of something I knew did not exist. That was until I met my wife. But before I tell you what happened, let me elaborate on how I met my wife to be and how much she means to me. I met Natalie in college. I was a nerdy guy, yet she saw in me something that no other girl in my life had. She was an extremely kind person who always had the sweetest of intentions. As I spent more time with her, I realized how many things we had in common. To me, she was the most beautiful girl in the world. I could stare into her green eyes for the rest of my life, and that's what I chose to do when I proposed and we finally got married. Fast forward to married life. I'm working now while she is working on an online master's degree. Life is good. Life is actually perfect. Too perfect. Ever since we got married, I've told her everything, my deepest secrets, my deepest feelings, and most importantly, my deepest fears. I remember when I first told her about my silly fear of monsters. At first she laughed it off. But over time, she noticed how I would sometimes shiver in bed, lying awake in fear. Being the sweetheart that she is, she would hold me and tell me it would be alright. My wife became my protector. She became the one that keeps my fears in check. Her face became that of an angel to me, one that would protect me from whatever scary things life had in store for me. I came to trust those beautiful green eyes, and every time I saw her, I knew I was safe. Now, to the more weird things that has been happening of late. The first incident that I can recall that could be defined as strange happened at 3 a.m. one night. I woke up feeling extremely thirsty and, being the fearful guy that I am, grabbed the flashlight to go get some water. As soon as I turned on the flashlight, I noticed my wife wasn't in bed. I looked over to the bathroom and the light was on, and I could hear the water running, so I assumed she was there. Half asleep, I walked downstairs to the kitchen and almost had a heart attack when I saw my wife standing in a corner drinking water. As soon as I saw her though, I felt safe. She smiled at me as she sipped the water from the glass. I was too tired and I mumbled something about how hot it is as I got some water. She continued to smile at me as I finished my water and headed upstairs. As I walked upstairs, I called out that she should come back to bed, seeing as it's so late. When I got back to my room, there she was, sound asleep. This was the moment I became wide awake. I could have sworn she was downstairs having water. Afraid to go back downstairs, I woke her up and told her what happened. Half asleep, half upset, she comforted me and told me to go back to bed. The next morning, she joked about how I'm so afraid of the dark that I see her everywhere as my protector. Besides, I was using the bathroom when you thought I was out of bed, she claimed. With that warm smile, how could I think otherwise? A week later, another strange incident. this one in broad daylight, while on a Sunday morning. Natalie woke me up at 11 AM and told me she was going to get groceries. At around 11:30, I finally got out of bed and dressed up for a late brunch with my beautiful wife. I went to the kitchen and found her drinking a glass of water. I smiled and said, "Back so soon, honey?" She didn't reply, just smiled at me as she sipped on her water. Before I could approach her, the doorbell rang and I immediately went to go see who it was. I opened the door. Yes, it was my wife, back with all the groceries. "Oh, help me with all of this, will you?" she jokingly snapped as she put down the paper bags by the door. As soon as she saw my color-drained face, she knew something was wrong. She sat me down, got me some water, and I told her what happened. This time it was in broad daylight, and I knew what I saw. As much as I had come to adore her beautiful green eyes, for the first time, I saw in them a strange fear. My wife was the strong one, never afraid. She told me there is something she should have told me a long time ago. She said this happened to her as a kid, a lot, where her parents and siblings would see her in places they knew she wasn't. They could never explain these occurrences, but seeing as it caused no harm, they came to live with it without really questioning these encounters. It took me a few months to process everything she had told me, but I started to live with it also. Like I said, my true perception of fear was monsters, not my beautiful wife. Several similar incidents happen. For instance, I would see her sitting in bed, only to find her cooking in the kitchen downstairs. And in all these instances, when I would interact with this entity that I still saw as my wife, she would smile and not say anything. I actually came to find comfort in seeing my wife all the time, always smiling, always happy, and always perfect. It is important to note, however, that in all of these incidents, there was never any overlap, meaning I never saw her in two places simultaneously. I guess any sane person would have called out to their wife when they thought they were seeing the entity. But like I said, I found comfort in her green eyes, in her smiling face. So honestly, I didn't care. Then, today, everything changed. My wife told me she was going to visit her grandparents, who live an hour away from where we do. She invited me to go, but seeing as it was a Sunday and I just wanted to be lazy, I told her to go ahead without me. This is when it finally happened. The overlap. I was in my living room watching TV when I got up to get myself a Coke. There she was, my wife again, sipping water from a glass and just smiling. I was so used to it by now, knowing this was the entity. I smiled and said, "It is nice to see you are still watching over me." She smiled and continued to look at me with those beautiful green eyes I had grown so fond of. That's when the phone rang, and I turned away from the entity to pick it up. "Hey sweetie, I'm going to run a little late since Granny insists on me staying for lunch." It was my wife, and as soon as I heard her voice, I heard a glass shatter, which my wife on the phone also heard. I turned around and saw that the entity was now glaring at me, the smile no longer there, but rather a very disturbing grin. She was pointing at me, with her head tilted at a perfect 90-degree angle. But that wasn't what disturbed me, it was her eyes. They were no longer the green that I found so much comfort in. They were pitch black, like those demons in the movies. I stared at her as I was at a complete loss for words. "Honey, is everything okay? Did you drop something?" my wife asked on the phone. I whispered back into the phone, "I didn't, she did." At this point, my wife screamed into the phone, "Hang up and look away!" I don't know how I found the strength to do so, but I did exactly what she said. When I opened my eyes a split second later, she was gone. Confused and scared, I called my wife back, who said she was already on the way. It shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have overlapped. They said it wouldn't. They said she was harmless. I am too scared to just sit around and wait. I still keep looking over my shoulder. My wife should be home any time now. As soon as she gets back, I will ask her more about what she meant by they and what the hell is going on. She knows something, and I have to know what it is. Never did I think that the one I hold so near and dear to my heart, the one who protects me, could become the monster that I fear the most. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sir Ayme, and this is only part 1 of 4. There's 4 parts to this story. I've never actually done a story with 4 parts before, but this was the winner of the April No Sleep contest, and I promised I would do it, so I'm gonna do all 4 of them. I will have them come out like about an interval of about a day. So 1 today, 1 in 2 days, 1 in 4 days, and 1 in 6 days. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I would really appreciate it if you would, and I will see you all later. Cheers.